This is a really interesting and real life case study from our client base about how we saved a client 2 million in VGTR claims just by asking the right questions. So just to set the scene, we had a financial controller approach us from a really large game studio that had a number of international subsidiaries, and they'd actually been told by their accountant that they needed to move to VGEC immediately. This was last year, so that was absolutely not the case. It was in respect of an ongoing project that they'd historically been claiming under VGTR. And really, the implication of moving to VGEC was huge to them. Obviously, millions of pounds was at risk because they did a lot of development work through their non-UK subsidiaries. So they'd received this advice to move across to VGEC, and they'd actually come to us to ask us to prepare their VGEC claim, but we wanted to dig a little bit deeper because it didn't sound right to us. And what we uncovered that was that they didn't need to move to VGEC straight away. They could still continue to claim under VGTR, but their accountant, or sadly the person that gave them the advice, hadn't quite considered the full picture, and no one had really thought to question it either in terms of how could the structure be changed in order to claim under VGTR until it's sunsetted in April 2027. So interestingly, what we found when we looked at it properly was obviously the advice was to move to VGEC immediately. This wasn't correct. It didn't sound right to us from the start. So we identified that there was an alternative path that hadn't been considered, and this involved the studio's corporate structure and the legal agreements and certain contracts that needed revisiting and rewording, etc. But the underlying position was recoverable. They hadn't actually claimed under VGEC yet, so we managed to stop that, which was quite a lucky move. So what we did was we brought in a specialist law firm, one that specializes in the games industry. We have a lot of contacts in that area, so if you need someone referred to, let us know. And what happened was there was a consideration of the studio's corporate structure and the agreements contracts updated and re-executed, and that was to better support their continued claims under VGTR. So it was a holistic review. There was nothing massively complicated about it in terms of tax schemes. It was just getting those foundations right in a way that legally it was absolutely correct. There was nothing dodgy about it, nothing particularly complex either in terms of the schemes. So the outcome to that was they managed to claim an additional 2 million in VGTR, which would have been lost if they'd moved to VGEC immediately. And as I say, not from a major restructure or nothing complex about it. It's just from taking the first step of reaching out and asking for a second opinion. Well, they didn't even ask that. They didn't ask for a second opinion. They asked us to do their claim. But as part of our role as specialists is to, I guess, take a step backwards and do a sense check over that to make sure it's correct. And I'm so glad we did, because without that, 2 million in VGR would have just been completely lost. So I guess the moral of the story is if you're not sure, if something doesn't sound quite right, and you might have received some well-intentioned advice, but there's something niggling at the back of your mind that the full picture hasn't been considered, then just reach out, and definitely worth a chat.